Hi, and welcome back to Understanding Depression. If this is your first time tuning in, I'm really glad you're here. And if you've been following this journey with us, thank you. Your presence means a lot. Today's episode is one I've been wanting to share for a while. It's titled, It's Not About Weakness, Why Some People Are More at Risk. We often hear things like just be strong or snap out of it, especially when it comes to mental health. But the truth is, depression isn't about being weak. It's not about lacking willpower. It's about something deeper, more complex, and yes, often outside of our control. So let's dive into some of those complexities. Let's talk about why some people are more vulnerable to depression than others. And first, let's start with something we often can't see: our biology. Genetics and the brain. The foundation we're born with. Some people are born with a higher risk of developing depression because of their genes. That's right, our DNA plays a role. Studies have shown that depression tends to run in families. If you have a parent or sibling with depression, your chances of developing it are higher than someone without that family history. But let's pause here. This doesn't mean it's guaranteed. Genetic risk is like a loaded gun. It only fires if triggered by something else. So just having the gene doesn't mean you will get depression. It just means your brain might be more sensitive to stress, emotional pain, or changes in your environment. Now, what exactly is happening in the brain? Researchers have found that people with depression often have differences in brain structure and brain chemistry. Certain areas of the brain, like the hippocampus, the amygdala, and the prefrontal cortex, may function differently, and brain chemicals like serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine, when they're out of balance, it can affect your mood, motivation, sleep, appetite, and even how you process thoughts. In the next part, we'll explore how personality traits, like being perfectionistic or highly empathetic, can also increase the risk of depression, especially when paired with biological vulnerability. So stay with me, take a deep breath, and let's keep going. Alright, so we've talked about genetics and the brain. Now, let's shift our focus to something closer to our daily lives: personality traits. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to take on the world's problems like they're their own? Or maybe you know someone who's incredibly kind, responsible, and always trying to do the right thing, but deep down, they're struggling silently. These aren't signs of weakness. In fact, they often come from deep empathy, sensitivity, and high expectations of oneself. But interestingly, these same beautiful qualities can sometimes make a person more vulnerable to depression. The hidden cost of being too good. Let's talk about perfectionism. People with perfectionistic tendencies tend to set unrealistically high standards for themselves. They feel like nothing they do is ever good enough, even if it's objectively amazing. And when they fall short, they're often incredibly hard on themselves. Perfectionism doesn't just create pressure, it can fuel chronic stress, feelings of failure, and isolation. Over time, that inner tension builds up, and depression can sneak in quietly, masked as exhaustion or low self-worth. Then there are the empaths, those who feel deeply, who notice even the smallest emotional shifts in others. They often care so much that they carry other people's pain as if it were their own. This kind of emotional intensity can be beautiful, but when left unmanaged, it can be exhausting. And let's not forget those who are naturally highly sensitive. They react more strongly to both positive and negative stimuli. Loud noises, conflicts, harsh criticism, or emotionally charged environments can affect them more deeply than others. Their nervous systems are more finely tuned, which means they experience life vividly, but also more painfully at times. If you see yourself in any of these traits, please know this: you are not broken. Your sensitivity is not a flaw. In fact, it might just mean you experience the world in ways others can't begin to imagine. In part 3, we'll explore how life circumstances and environment, like trauma, loss, or discrimination interact with biology and personality to shape a person's mental health journey. Stick around. It's about to get even more eye-opening. So far, we've talked about what we're born with, our genes, our brain chemistry, and even our personality. But none of those things exist in a vacuum. They interact with what life throws at us. And let's be honest, sometimes life throws a lot. The weight of the world, stress, loss, and trauma. Let's start with chronic stress. This might come from a high-pressure job, financial instability, caregiving responsibilities, or living in an unsafe environment. When stress is constant and unrelenting, it wears down both the body and the mind. Think of it like dripping water on a stone. Eventually, it leaves a mark. Long-term stress keeps the body in a state of hyperalertness, increasing levels of cortisol, a stress hormone. Over time, this can disrupt sleep, weaken the immune system, and impact brain function. The result? You may start to feel numb, hopeless, or detached, hallmarks of depression. Then there's loss of a loved one, a job, a relationship, or even a sense of identity. Grief is natural, but for some, especially those already vulnerable, that grief can deepen into a more lasting state of emotional shutdown. And let's not forget the painful impact of trauma. Whether it's physical, emotional, or psychological, trauma leaves deep imprints. Childhood trauma, in particular, has been linked to changes in brain development and emotional regulation. If you've ever wondered why something from years ago still affects your mental health today, this might be why. Discrimination and exclusion. The wounds society doesn't always see sometimes. It's not just what happens to us, but what happens around us. People who experience discrimination because of their race, gender, sexual orientation, disability, or socioeconomic status often face an added layer of emotional burden. Microaggressions, social exclusion, and systemic inequality chip away at one's sense of safety and belonging. The world, in those cases, becomes not just stressful, but threatening. And when someone feels unseen or invalidated day after day, depression can become a shadow that follows them closely. In Part 4, we'll talk about something crucial: how all of these risk factors, biological, psychological, and social, do not mean someone is doomed. There is hope. There are ways forward. And that's where we're headed next. Take a moment, check in with yourself, and when you're ready, let's continue. Let's take a breath together. We've covered a lot: genetics, brain chemistry, personality traits, trauma, stress, and social injustice. It's heavy, and if you're still with me, I just want to say thank you. This conversation isn't easy, but it's important. Now, here's something I want to say loud and clear. Just because someone is at higher risk for depression doesn't mean they're destined to live in darkness. Risk is not destiny. Vulnerability is not fate. And mental health struggles are not a life sentence. The brain can heal. Patterns can change. One of the most powerful truths in mental health research today is this: the brain is adaptable. Through a process called neuroplasticity, the brain can form new connections, strengthen healthier patterns, and even rewire itself after trauma. This means that with the right support, therapy, medication, meaningful relationships, self-care routines, healing can happen. People who once felt broken can learn to manage their symptoms, rediscover joy, and live rich, fulfilling lives. I've seen it. Maybe you have too. Building protective factors. Just like there are risk factors, there are protective factors that buffer us against depression. Let's name a few: a supportive family member or friend who truly listens, access to therapy or mental health resources, a safe place to express emotions without judgment, healthy coping tools like journaling, exercise, art, or mindfulness, a sense of purpose, belonging, or spiritual connection. These things don't eliminate risk, but they make it easier to navigate life's challenges when they come. The power of awareness, knowing your risk factors, is not about labeling yourself. It's about understanding yourself. And with understanding comes compassion. And with compassion comes the possibility of change. When we stop blaming ourselves, we open the door to healing. In the final part, we'll take everything we've talked about and lead into a powerful next step. Real stories from real people. Because depression doesn't look the same for everyone, and hearing how others have faced it can bring comfort, connection, and even courage. So stay with me. Let's bring these ideas to life. We've journeyed through the science, the psychology, and the social realities of depression. We've talked about how it's not about being weak. It's about how deeply interconnected our biology, personality, and life experiences truly are. But sometimes what makes all of this real is a story, not just the theory, not juste the research, but the human behind it. Stories that remind us it can happen to anyone. Next in our series, we'll hear from people who've experienced depression from all kinds of backgrounds. You'll meet a high-achieving student who always looked like they had it all together, until burnout and pressure pulled them into a deep depression. A parent who quietly carried trauma from their own childhood while trying to care for their kids, never realizing how much the past was shaping their present. A young professional navigating the pressures of being the strong one in their community, silently drowning in expectations. And someone who never thought they'd struggle with mental health, until grief changed everything. These stories aren't just powerful. They're proof. Proof that depression doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care how successful you are, how kind you've been, or how hard you try to stay positive. But they're also stories of resilience, of healing, of finding strength in unexpected places. You are not alone, and you never have to be if you've ever felt like something was wrong with you for feeling low, overwhelmed, or hopeless. Please hear this. You are not alone. There is a path forward, and while that path may look different for everyone, it always begins with understanding and compassion. This episode was about risk, yes, but more than that, it was about hope. And if you've made it this far, I truly hope you carry that with you. Before we go, if you found this helpful or meaningful in any way, consider sharing this episode with someone who might need to hear it. Like, comment, subscribe, and let's keep this conversation alive, because the more we understand, the more we can help each other and ourselves. In the next episode, we'll begin exploring those real-life stories, honest, unfiltered, and deeply human. So stay tuned, and stay kind to yourself. You matter, and I'm so glad you're here.